Hello, everyone. Hello. Testing, testing. Hope this mic is working. It's been popping a little bit. I've been looking a little bit at some of my past live streams, and I think I know why. I think I know why it's been popping. And that's because I left this adapter in there by mistake. So this adapter enables this microphone to be plugged into a computer and work. But I think I accidentally, after I was using it with my computer, left it connected to the microphone and then plugged it into my phone with the adapter connected. And I think that messed with it. So hopefully the audio sounds good. Hello, whoever just stopped in here. How are you? How you doing? As I always say, it's not a rhetorical question. I encourage anybody who hops in to type what's on their mind in the chat. We can have a talk. Personally, I don't have a whole lot to talk about. I did drop a video recently, so if anybody has any feedback on that, it would be very, very welcome. I would really appreciate the feedback. It's like pulling teeth trying to get feedback sometimes. I mean, I know, the video just passed 100 views, or maybe it's not even at 100 views yet. It's not really doing well. My latest educational video is not doing too great. But I keep saying repeatedly in the videos that I really want people to comment. I really want people to give me their feedback, and yet on the recent content, I haven't gotten a whole lot of it. Plenty of feedback on my past content, but not a whole lot of feedback on my recent content. So don't know what that's all about, but hopefully I can get some more comments, more discussion. People tell me what I'm doing wrong, what I'm doing right. It's very, very important. I enjoy and welcome criticism. Don't run away from it. I try my best to use criticism to my advantage. Unlike a lot of people I see on YouTube, like a lot of these big YouTubers, they'll have like these back and forth sort of roasting, exposed video, like insult fests toward each other. They just have like the thinnest skins that you can imagine. Any form of criticism, and they get really, really upset about it. Not me. Not me. I welcome it. But like I said before, for those of you who just hopped in here, hello, how are you? Athby says hello. Hello, Athby, how are you? I keep having to remember that there is a little bit of a delay. The chat messages appear, and then I respond to them, but then, if I ask for a response, the responding chat message is not, it takes a little while to get there, so I have to be patient. Athby says, I'm doing good. Cool. Very good to hear that, she says, or he, I don't know what gender you are, but maybe you're non-binary, I don't know. I'm adopting a cat soon. Very cool. Good for you. Cats are interesting animals. Not a huge cat guy myself. I had a cat. My family had a cat when I was a kid, but she lived outside. She basically lived in our garage, and she would go around and just do whatever she wanted to outside during the day, and then come back to our garage to hang out at night. That was the relationship that I had with my cat. I've also had a lot of, I don't know, maybe not a lot, but more than a few just unpleasant encounters with cats where they're just, either they don't give a shit about you, or, they're really hostile towards you. So I'm more of a dog kind of guy. I'm more of a dog lover. I have a dog. I don't have a cat. Oh yeah, I love dogs. Dogs are the best, in my opinion, of course. That's not to say that I haven't met some very charming cats in my day. So 2 months before I bought my house up here in South Carolina, I moved here from Florida about 10 months ago. But 2 months before I bought my house, I was basically like homeless. I was just kind of surfing on doing Airbnbs. I was staying in Airbnbs, and I would stay at one place for a couple of days at a time, and I'd stay another place for a night. I'd stay another place for a couple of nights, and occasionally my Airbnb hosts would have cats. Some of them had cats, and all of the cats with which I interacted during my Airbnb homeless days here in South Carolina, they were actually really cool. They were really charming cats. They weren't like crazy or fearful, and like they'd let you kind of scratch the bottom of their face a little bit, and start purring and stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of charming cats out there, but I don't know, the expression on a dog's face and just the behavior of a dog when you come home, it's like the best thing ever. Like you've been gone forever. They're just so excited. And I like the athleticism of a dog too. I mean, cats are also very athletic, of course, like the way they jump and stuff like that. But I just like, how a dog can, just run full clip and just catch a tennis ball in full stride. My dog's really good at that. It's got a couple more people joined in. Hello. 4 concurrent viewers at this point. Oh, it just dropped to 3, but I love all 3 of you. You guys are awesome. Man, some of you guys have names that are hard for me to pronounce, so I apologize if I mispronounce them, but Aviral Aragwal says, hey man, hello, how are you? I'm just going to call you AA. Again, no offense, I just, being an American, I have a hard time pronouncing names from other cultures. AA, how are you? Says, what's up, man? Not a whole lot is up. I would say in my personal life, things have taken a pretty good upturn. I mean, there's some personal stuff happening, like some medical stuff happening with, the pregnancy and my second daughter and all that. But I don't want to, just shout about those things publicly. So I think I would prefer, because I haven't really talked to my wife about, whether or not she would be cool with me hopping on YouTube and just announcing her medical condition publicly. So I'm going to keep it private. But I guess I could probably just say that, there are slight things that have made the pregnancy maybe a little bit more complicated, but everything is still just fine. No reason to believe that everything will be anything short of just fine. But there is something that has made the pregnancy a little bit more complicated. And as for my daughter who has been born, my almost 2-year-old daughter, she is doing better. When I streamed a week ago, I mentioned that she had a fever, and we were like, oh no, it could be corona and all that stuff. It wasn't. It was just an ear infection. So we got her on the antibiotics. We still have a couple more days of giving her the amoxicillin is the name of the antibiotic that she's taking, and she loves it, by the way. It's like this pink, like bubblegum flavored stuff. Every time I load the syringe with it and give it to her, she loves it. She like wants to hold the syringe and give it to her and do it herself. It's kind of weird, like holding a syringe to my daughter. I don't know. It's hard to get past it, but there's something weird about it. But she really, really enjoys it. So we're giving her 7.5 milliliters of the amoxicillin twice a day, one in the morning, one at night. And we'll be done doing that on Sunday. Another thing that happened, unrelated to family, is more of a professional thing. So, okay, Kai asks, what do you think of Joe Rogan's comments on video games? I'm not hugely aware of Joe Rogan's comments on video games. I think I heard something about it. There was like a video that PewDiePie did about it. I'm trying to think what that was all about. I think it was something along the lines of, people, get sucked into video games, and then they, they just kind of no longer have a life, and it becomes an addiction with a lot of people. And if they spent that time doing something that was healthier or more productive, like jujitsu, then it would be, then they'd have a better life, and they'd be, more likely to be able to turn that into a career by being an instructor and all that kind of stuff. He says Rocket League is trash, LOL. Hey, we can't all be right about everything. I mean, I think that was what he was talking about. He's talking about like people getting like sucked into video games and not being productive. And I think he's right. I think that, because you see like these big time, like video game streamers and stuff like that, you know, that make like millions of dollars annually doing video game streaming. Number one, like those people, you know, may look like they're having a good time, and perhaps they are, but they also work extremely hard. And number two, those are but a tiny, tiny, tiny percentage of the overall people who do that kind of stuff. So, you know, it kind of sucks because, like, you know, especially for someone like me who's trying to, you know, improve my YouTube channel and get more, you know, of a following and everything. In your feed, you're constantly inundated with, you know, the cream of the crop people who are just, you know, they'll, you know, I saw this one video that was uploaded, and like it was like uploaded 4 hours ago. At the time that I was notified, at the time I saw, you know, the notification for this video, or I saw it in my feed. It had been 4 hours since it had been uploaded, and it already had like 400,000 views, and it's like, holy crap, that's insane. But I keep having to remind myself that no, these are like the top. These are like the best of the best in terms of how they've, you know, reached out and grown their channels and optimized, you know, how to, the algorithms and all that kind of stuff. And also, you know, they have teams working on it. You know, I'm just me, myself, and I, you know, work full time, so I kind of have to cut myself some slack. But I think Joe Rogan was right. I think by and large, you know, video games, you know, it's kind of a black hole. You know, like you can play a video game over and over and over and over again, and you know, you'll end up most likely in the same socioeconomic status that you were before you started playing the game. And I will say this, as much as I love Rocket League, for those of you who don't know, Rocket League is a vehicular soccer game. You play on, sometimes individually, although I don't like playing solo or one-on-one, play in teams of 2, teams of 3, and in some cases teams of 4 in the chaos mode. But it's a vehicular soccer game where your goal is, you know, you're a car and you're driving and you're jumping and you have a booster and, you know, you fly through the sky or jump, you know, high and all that stuff. And the goal is to knock this ball into your opponent's goal, similar to a soccer game, only it's with cars. It's really, really fun. So, you know, I will say this though, sometimes, you know, because I'm a PC gamer, right? Or I wouldn't call myself a PC gamer. I just occasionally play video games on PC. But I don't use consoles anymore. So I play these video games on PC, and the application that I use, or the program, or the whatever marketplace that I use to, you know, the portal that I use to play the games or buy the games or whatever, is called Steam. You're probably familiar with Steam. And Steam has this thing where, you know, whenever you click on, you know, where you go into a library and you look at all the games that you have, if you click on a game, in my case, you know, the most common game that I play is Rocket League. I click on Rocket League and it'll tell me right there how many hours I've spent playing that game, how many total hours that I've spent on just playing Rocket League. And, you know, I see the number, and then, you know, I'm like, oh man, that's how many hours. How many days is that? You know, so you divide that by 24, that gives you how many days. And it's like, oh my gosh, this many days of my life, not even including sleep, this many days of my life have been spent playing this one video game. And it's like, imagine what I could have done with that time, you know. But you know, I snap out of it though, because, like, you know, having fun with people. I play with my brother all the time. You know, we hop into Discord, and you know, we talk to each other and strategize and stuff, and, you know, crack jokes and stuff like that. It's a very uncensored environment. And it's fun, you know. It's like fun and recreation and rest and things like that, you know, recharging, you know, between working and stuff like that. Those things are important. You know, you can't be 100% productive all the time. You need that downtime to relax so you don't burn out. So that's what I would have to say about it. It's, you know, just, and this is kind of the same thing that PewDiePie was saying, is that, you know, if you want to be happy, just do different things, you know, have some variety in your life. Don't just put all of your eggs in one basket. So, so that was a long-winded answer, but yeah. Okay, so let me respond to a couple of messages in the chat. AA says, or Avi, I think is what you said you wanted to be called. Hope she recovers soon. Thanks, man. I mean, you know, looking at her externally, it looks like she's fully recovered. It's just, you know, you're supposed to finish the antibiotics or run them through the entire course that the doctor says, you know, so you don't end up with like a bunch of antibiotic resistant bacteria or anything like that. So yeah, she's doing really well. Darlene Buzzmion, I'm so sorry, I can't pronounce your name correctly. Laughing like a fool, man. I don't know what that means, but thank you for your chat message. Kai says you should try to increase the frequency of your live stream so that the channel is pushed by YouTube's algorithm. Really, is that how it works? I didn't know that uploading live streams more frequently boosted you higher in the algorithm. I will certainly consider that. I don't know if I'll be able to act on it, but I will certainly consider it, because I do get pretty busy throughout the week. In fact, my wife's probably like, what the hell, dude? Why aren't you home yet? So let's see. More chat. Avi says, I remember watching your videos when I was preparing for my exams in 12th grade. Thank you so much for everything. You are very welcome, sir. I'm so glad my content was helpful for you. You have no idea how encouraging those kind words are and how motivational they are to moving me forward. So I appreciate your kind words and your feedback. Thank you. Thank you very much. Kai asks me, did you see the video of the doctors talking about hydroxychloroquine with zinc has worked well as a cure? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've heard of it before, but I don't know exactly what video you're talking about. I don't really follow these things super closely. A lot of, just bullshit, misinformation out there. So I just tune it out. I do what I'm told at work, and when I'm not at work, I just do my thing and focus on the stuff over which I have control. I don't really spend a whole lot of time focusing on things that I don't have any control over. The one thing that's sticking out in my memory about hydroxychloroquine, or queen, I don't know how to pronounce it, but hydroxychloroquine, let's just call it that for now, was this thing where apparently the President Trump, said something about how, this is looking good and it could be really promising according to these scientific papers and blah, blah, blah. And then some article came out, I can't remember, I think it was CBS News. CBS News came out with an article that said, there's this couple in Arizona, and the man has died and the woman is critically, in critical condition after taking hydroxychloroquine, after the president said that it was a promising cure. And what the article, or the headline, or probably the article too, didn't mention was that what they did was they ingested a fish tank cleaner that happens to have hydroxychloroquine in it, okay? Which is a very, very misleading, very deceptive way to put out a headline. Because what they're trying to do, CBS News, is they're trying to plant the idea into the brain of the reader that it was President Trump's comments about hydroxychloroquine that killed these people, which is demonstrably false. These people drank fish tank cleaner that happens to have, among several ingredients, hydroxychloroquine. So it's very dishonest, it's very manipulative, it's extremely out of context. And, for all the legitimate criticisms that people have against the president, and of course there are several, just as there are with any politician, that's just something that it's just unacceptable for a mainstream media outlet. But in my experience, or in my observation recently, that has become the norm. That's become the norm with the mainstream media, is to just make all these hit pieces and take things out of context and mislead and omit information that gives folks the whole story and all that kind of stuff. Kai asks, how long do you think these lockdowns will last? 2022? I don't know. I mean, it depends entirely on what state you're in. I mean, there are states in this country that have never had any lockdowns. I live in South Carolina, and, most places are open nowadays. I can take my daughter to the park. I can take her to a sit-down restaurant. They did have a local ordinance in my county or the city where I live. I can't remember if it was a city ordinance or a county ordinance. Doesn't really make a difference. But there was a local ordinance that requires everybody to wear face masks when they go indoors to shop, or even restaurants are requiring, they're just complying with the ordinance. They're putting a sign on their front door that says face masks are required upon entry. But let me tell you something. In my experience, most sit-down restaurants around here that I visited, You walk in with a mask and then you take it off and you're perfectly fine. I mean, obviously you can't eat while wearing a mask, effectively anyway, unless you want to make a big mess or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I can pretty much almost do things exactly the same as before, the lockdowns began, now here in South Carolina. So, excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. Excuse me. So anyway, yeah, Kai, I think you told me that you were in California. Is that right? So yeah, from what I understand, California is still locked down. Governor Gavin Newsom is a complete nutbar, in my opinion, saying things like, until we have a cure, we're going to stay locked down. Until we have a vaccine, we're going to keep everything locked down. I think that is a very, very unrealistic proposition. I am so glad that I don't live in California, not just for that reason, but also for, I just like having more economic freedom. I like paying less taxes. So no disrespect to anybody who does live in California. I can certainly understand why many people would live in California. The weather is absolutely beautiful. I visited San Diego back in, I think it was 2012. 2012 or 2011, something like that. I went to San Diego for this American Chemical Society national meeting, and it was beautiful. I mean, the landscapes in California, it's a big state, so they have like cold, like winter activities too, like skiing and stuff like that. I mean, there's just a lot of attractive, wonderful, beautiful things about California. I'm not a big fan of the earthquakes, I'll tell you that. If there was an earthquake afoot, I don't know what I would do. I like to think I wouldn't panic, but nobody really, I guess, knows what they're going to do in that kind of situation. But yeah, I don't know when the lockdowns are going to end. I don't know when they're going to end. I've never ever been a proponent of any kind of mandate, any kind of force being used. I think, if you want to take out an ad, if you want to get on social media and, influence as many people as you can peacefully and put out, give your facts, give your charts, give your graphs about, make as compelling an argument as you want about why, people should voluntarily close their businesses. I think that's great. If you want to do that, I have no problem with that. It's when you start forcing people. It's when you start saying, if you do this, or if you don't lock down, if you continue to run your business, then you will be fined. And if you don't pay that fine, we will forcefully take you and lock you up in a cage. That I have a huge problem with. I think that adults should be left to make their own decisions. And I think the consequences don't matter if you're doing something wrong, right? If you're doing something that's ethically wrong, then it doesn't matter what consequences come out on the other side of it. And the way that I explain, because occasionally I'll debate people about this, and the way that I explain this sort of idea about, the ends not justifying the means, the way I explain it to my opponent or my debate partner, for, to make things a little bit more diplomatic, the way that I explain it is I say, okay, imagine the following thought experiment. Okay, so we're doing a thought experiment, and I'll invite you guys to participate in this thought experiment with me. So suppose I take $100 out of your wallet without your knowledge and obviously without your permission. And suppose I take that $100 that I took from your wallet without your knowledge and without your permission to a casino, and I brought it to a roulette table, and I put it on 21 black, let's say. And let's say, in one spin, I hit 21 black, and I automatically get paid $3,500. Because I think that's what the payout is for a single number in roulette. It's like a 35-to-1 payout, right? Not that I've ever played roulette, I'm more of a blackjack guy. But, so I have like $3,600 now, right? So I get paid, so I have $3,600, and let's say I give you like 400 of it, and I give the rest of it to charity. Like a reputable charity too, not one of these like United Way or March of Dimes type charities in which most of the money goes towards like administrative costs and salaries for the executives. I'm talking about like a really good charity, like the Action Against Hunger, I think is a really, really good charity, right? So again, so what did I do? I took $100 from you, I brought it to a casino, I put it on 21 black, I hit 21 black, I got paid $3,500, and of the $3,600 that I now have, I give you 400. I give the rest to charity. I give the remaining, I guess, 3,200 to charity, and then and I keep none of it. So there are 3 positive outcomes from that sequence of events, right? I basically tripled your money. I gave a lot to a reputable charity, and I took money away from an evil company that capitalizes on the self-destructive habits of others. 3 wonderful outcomes. Do those 3 outcomes in any way justify the initial theft of your $100? Even though I got these 3 wonderful outcomes, right? Do those outcomes in any way justify me taking your $100 bill to begin with, without your knowledge and without your permission? That's the question. My answer, no. I don't think the ends justify the means. Even if you think you're going to have a positive outcome, even if you have evidence to support that you'd have a positive outcome, I still don't think that the use of force is an ethically justifiable way of getting things done in society. So, let me look at some chat messages. Kaylee says hello. Hello, Kaylee. It's good to see you again. I hope you are doing well. Kai says, excuse my language, but our governor is a dipshit. Can't wait to leave this state. There's no difference between prison and locking down the state. I am so sorry that you are you're in that situation. And you know, we need social interaction. You know, we're social animals. We need other people. You know, and this online stuff, it's you know, better than nothing, but it's just not the same as being able to gather and just, you know, eat together and you know, dance, although I don't actually dance, but you see what I'm saying. Yeah, we need other people, and you know, for people to say that we don't need other people, like, think about this. This might blow your mind if you haven't already given any thought to it. But imagine like a prison, like a you know, like a, I guess San Quentin would be like a really like bad prison, you know, or a prison that has like a lot of really, really bad people in it, like murderers and rapists and violent criminals and stuff like that. So imagine this prison with a lot of bad characters in it, and somebody does something, you know, maybe they smuggle drugs in, or they, you know, kill another prisoner, or they, you know, do something that like violates the prison's rules or whatever. What's the worst punishment that the warden or the guards could give to that prisoner? The worst punishment that they can give to that person is to lock them up in solitary confinement by themselves. Think about that. Just think about that. The worst punishment that you can have as a prisoner is to be kept away from other violent criminals. You're being kept, like, it's just so counterintuitive. Like, wouldn't that be the best thing in the world, to be kept away from these violent, disgusting scumbags? No. That's punishment. That's how badly we need other people as a species. So yeah, I don't agree with any kind of forced lockdown. So Mr. Perfectionist says, where are you? It's day there? Yes, it is. It is a little after 5, close to 5:30 p.m. I am in Eastern Daylight Time Zone here in the wonderful state of South Carolina, here in the United States. It's on the southeastern side of the country. Kaylee says, I would say you are limited in prison as far as punishments that are legal, though. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, that's you're right. I mean, but if you had the choice between, like, you know, I don't know, like 10 lashes with a whip, or like solitary confinement for a long period of time, like, I don't know, like, I think most people would probably take 10 lashes with the whip. I mean, you know, people go insane when they're alone. People when they're in solitary confinement go absolutely insane. They lose their minds. They kill themselves. It's the worst punishment, in my opinion. I'm just trying to demonstrate how bad we need others. Stop poking holes in my argument. I'm just kidding. That is a good point that Kaylee brought up. So, yeah. Trying to see what else is going on. So, okay, before I started going off on all those tangents, starting with the question about, you know, what Joe Rogan has to say about video games, I was talking about something pretty cool that happened professionally the other day. So the other day, somebody reaches out to me on LinkedIn. I do have a LinkedIn. I don't know if anybody here if any of you guys have a LinkedIn, but I have a LinkedIn, personal LinkedIn, and it's good for like, networking and stuff like that. Not as good as like going out and meeting people, but it's it's better than like any other site, social networking site as far as like getting your name out there and putting resumes out there and things like that goes. So someone in my network DMs me on LinkedIn and says, "Hey, I'm applying for a job with your company in Miami, Florida," and I'm like, "Oh wow, that's cool. Would you like me to put in a good word for you and try to get your name out, up to the top of the list of applicants and this and that?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, that would be so great. I would really appreciate that. Thank you." And so and this person, ironically enough, or coincidentally enough, happens to be the same person that helped me get my job back when I worked for a defense contractor studying rocket fuel. So she was leaving that company in pursuit of something else she wanted like a different location or something like that. And so, I reached out to her and she really went to bat for me and helped me get my job back then. And now it was sort of like my chance to return the favor, right? And so I go up to the senior, manager at my job site, and I ask him, I'm like, "Hey, I got this woman's resume. She's awesome. She helped me back in the day. She's got, she's impressive, hard worker, and this and that." And he's like, "Yeah, not only should you send me her resume, but you should also look up the employee referral program." And I'm like, "There's an employee referral program? I didn't even know that was a thing." And so there's like this whole online portal where I can like put her name in and her email. And I was able to actually refer her. She's actually applying for 2 different jobs within the company. I don't know which one she wants more, but she's submitting 2 applications. And so I was able to submit 2 referrals for this person. And if she gets hired for either of them, then I get $1,000. I mean, they're trying to like incentivize people to bring in people from their network to join the company. So this kind of goes back to what I always tell people is that, like the way that you get jobs is not by just putting your feet up with a laptop and submitting a bunch of applications online. No, the way that you get jobs is by knowing somebody in the company who can walk into the hiring manager's office. Well, in my case, I don't know the hiring manager, so I couldn't walk into their office, and it's all the way in Miami. I'm not going to fly down there. But like to actually get in direct contact with the hiring manager and slap the resume on the desk and say, "You need to hire this person. Like if you're looking for somebody to do the job, like this person is a really good candidate." That's how people get jobs. So it was a nice chance for me to sort of do a good deed. And then, I wasn't even expecting to get a payout from it, but that's actually quite possible now. So not only is her name at the top of the list of applicants and I've, done her a solid, but I also might get paid. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so Kai asks, on a different topic, do you think the United States should move away from a 2-party state? What if I don't fully agree with either political spectrum? Should I just not vote? Yeah, I've never really been a big fan of voting in general, or like the idea of democracy in general. I'm not really a huge fan of like a democratic government, and I know like that might sound crazy. I'm not a big fan of like dictatorships either, don't get me wrong, but if you think about what democracy is, it's basically just saying that if you can outnumber somebody, you can impose your will on them. I don't really like that idea, and I know we have to have something, so I'm just saying that I'm not trying to tell you that that it's all bad, or that there's other things that of course there are other things that are worse than popular sovereignty, but yeah, I've never liked the idea of being able to impose your will on somebody because you outnumber them, and I've also never really liked the idea of voting for office, because if I had the choice, I would choose not to have a master. I would choose not to have somebody who initiates the use of force against me. I would choose not to have an agency in society that forces me to pay them to fund a bunch of things that I find morally objectionable, like wars and the war on drugs and using money as collateral to Chinese banksters for national debts and to fund these god-awful government schools. And believe me, I've been in them. I know how awful they are. So I'm just not a huge fan of voting. I'm just not a huge fan of voting in general. Um, some people invoke the lesser of two evils argument when they're voting, and I certainly, I understand that argument. Um, it kind of makes sense. I mean, to slow down, um, the eventual totalitarianism of our country that is going to eventually take place. I think it could be a worthwhile pursuit, and especially as a father, with kids, it's like, yeah, I got a skin in the game now. It's like I really want them to inherit a society that's better than the one in which I grew up. Like I see a lot of stuff happening lately, and it just doesn't seem like that's happening. Doesn't seem like that's happening. It seems like the government has more control of us, more information about us, now than it ever has before. I mean, somebody brought up, I think it was you, Kai, or somebody, maybe it wasn't you, but somebody brought up Joe Rogan earlier. You want to listen to a good Joe Rogan podcast episode, listen to the one with Edward Snowden, and that'll blow your mind about how all this data is collected by the U.S. government. It's like this guilty before proven innocent mentality where, instead of, going after somebody and digging into their electronic profile or whatever, their history, instead of digging into that, after we have the evidence of wrongdoing, we're just going to collect everything from everybody, just, hundreds of millions of terabytes of data, just collect all of it. And then, then if anything happens, we'll look it up. I think that's terrible, but I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. So I want to get back to the topic. Should you vote or shouldn't you? I don't know. I mean, you're welcome to do whatever you want to do. You're welcome to do whatever you want to do. I resolutely resist telling people what to do. I mean, there's a few things we shouldn't do. We shouldn't hit each other. We shouldn't scream at each other. We shouldn't steal from one another. We certainly shouldn't rape anybody. We shouldn't assault anybody. Like, I have no problem telling people not to do those things. But in terms of other things that you should do, I don't care. Do whatever you like. Do whatever you like. Like I said, I'm not a big fan of voting, but, I have considered, going to a voting booth and just spoiling my ballot and turning that in. I think that makes a statement. But yeah, I'm just never been a huge fan of voting. Kai says, once again, oh, and by the way, thank you for your participation thus far, Kai. I really appreciate it. Good topics. Kai says, oh yeah, that podcast was interesting. I was fascinated that even when your iPhone is off, they can still trace your data. I was spooked when Snowden mentioned that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's never off, right? Unless it's dead. If it's dead, maybe it's off. But as long as it's connected to something that's giving it power, then it's really, in essence, it's always on. Kai says, I hear Jesse Lee Peterson is running, so I guess Dave Farina would vote for him. LMAO, would you? Oh man, would I vote for Jesse Lee Peterson? Like I said, in general, I'm not a big fan of voting in general. I did not know that Jesse Lee Peterson was running for president, though. But look, man, like I certainly don't agree with everything Jesse Lee Peterson says, but I think that it is important to have people like Jesse Lee Peterson. Beta, that is hilarious. I think it's important to have people like Jesse Lee Peterson out there because I think a lot of the points that Jesse Lee Peterson talks about are not being talked about by nearly enough people. When he talks about how valuable the nuclear family is, when he talks about how masculinity has been under attack, fatherhood has been under attack, you turn on any sitcom and the dad is just a dumbass buffoon who doesn't know what the hell's going on. Those things are really, really important, really important in my opinion. So even though he's very hyperbolous and abrasive at times and, he doesn't exactly, do a good job to argue from, empirical or numerical or statistical data, I still think it is very, very important to have people like him out there. And I also think that, it's important to, I think it's important for everybody to to be able to have a voice. I think it's important for everyone to be able to, to express their ideas freely. If you want to debate somebody, then you can debate them and you can say, hey, audience, these are why my ideas are better than my opponents. But if you completely censor and shut down, and I know nobody's here is making that argument, but I'm just kind of, bringing in sort of the whole cancel culture thing, which has been happening lately. Oh, I don't like this guy. It's hate speech. So let's cancel him. I don't think that's healthy at all. It doesn't make the ideas go away. If anything, it builds them up and makes them stronger and kind of martyrizes these people. So let's see. Kai says he's a master troll, but some of his words have some truth, even when he's a little harsh on the black community. Absolutely. Absolutely. Some of his words actually do have a lot of truth. And listen, there are some truths that are very unpleasant. They're very sad. And but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be honest about them. There are some truths that I wish weren't true, but as Ayn Rand said, you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. If there's a problem within a community or whatever, I think that problem needs to be looked at honestly and critically. And you can't just pretend that the problem doesn't exist when there's a lot of evidence to show that a problem does exist. I think, you certainly, that's the whole cliche, right? Like, the first step in solving a problem is admitting that you have one. I mean, but even though it's a cliche, it's like, it's pretty true, So I definitely applaud him for that. Certainly have my criticisms with him. As I mentioned in my talk with Dave Farina, talking about how, to basically generalize that, psychiatric medications are overall a net negative, and that, all they do is just get people hooked on them and make people less masculine, or or whatever. I can't remember his entire argument. I'm paraphrasing here, so don't quote me on this. But basically, the oversimplification of psychiatry and psychiatric medications or psychotropic medications, I certainly disagree with that. But that doesn't mean I think he's an idiot. That doesn't mean I think he needs to be shut down. Or anything like that. So, yeah. Probably wouldn't vote for him, but he's not the worst candidate in the world. I think if it were between him and Kanye, I'd probably take him. Interesting times we're living in, but I would go Jesse Lee Peterson over Kanye all the way. It's funny because there's 4 people in here, Kai, and it's very likely that you and I, of the 5 of us, are the only people who know who Jesse Lee Peterson is. He's not a super well-known guy, but if you don't know what we're talking about, just look him up. He does a live stream on YouTube, I think every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So you can look it up if you want to. Thoughts on Kanye? LOL. To be honest, man, I don't really know much about the whole Kanye thing. I haven't really been. Kaylee says I roll my eyes so hard every time I'm reminded of Kanye. Running for president. Oh, okay. So yeah, thanks for putting that context in there, because Kanye, as many shortcomings as he has, and there are several shortcomings that Kanye has. The guy has become successful in a market where so many young men like him are trying to do the same thing. He somehow found a way to develop his craft, his music, into something and promote himself. And it's like all that work that's done behind the scenes that nobody talks about. I mean, anybody who's in that kind of position works super hard and super efficiently too, I might add. So to write him off as a complete idiot, I think is kind of short-sighted. I think obviously the guy has done something right. That doesn't happen by accident. There's a lot of hard work and there's a lot of skill that goes into becoming that kind of success. And, I'll be honest, I'll listen to a Kanye track every now and again. I'll never listen to like a Kanye playlist. But think about this though, right? If it weren't for Kanye West, then there wouldn't be that legendary South Park episode about Kanye West being liking fish sticks and being a gay fish and being the only one who who doesn't get the joke. I mean, that's like a really, really good South Park episode. And I'm not even, like to me, like that season of South Park, like South Park kind of started in my mind. This is just my subjective opinion here, but in my mind, South Park just kind of started declining. But then when that episode came out, oh man, I really liked that episode. It had like Carlos Mencia, which was hilarious, and I just thought it was so funny. So if it weren't for Kanye, then that South Park episode wouldn't exist. So in that, if it's only for that and nothing else, then I salute you, Kanye West, for being a precursor for that kind of comedy. So Athby says, I know Jesse Lee. Amazing. Yeah, he's an interesting character. I know Dave Farina's not a fan, but that's okay. We all have our preferences. We all have our opinions. Yeah. I do think, though, if I'm ever asked to discuss anything publicly or debate anything, then I'm definitely gonna like do my homework. I'm gonna have my numbers handy. I'm gonna have my ducks in a row. I'll even have like I'll have like these mock debates before, ahead of time, where I actually consider the opponent's position, like the devil's advocate position, to the points that I'm trying to make. In my mind, it doesn't seem like that debate, that particular one, there was a lot of advanced preparation. It seems like it was kind of ad hoc, which is fine. I mean, you don't have to prepare, but if it were me, I would prepare. I would do my homework. So let's see. I can only glance at the chat briefly because I'm driving now. But Kai says, back to the gaming and cancel culture. What do you think about Dr. Disrespect? It has to be either something related to #MeToo or past racial statements. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the fact that Twitch hasn't like given the reason why. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Dr. Disrespect was this big, or I guess he still is. He's this big, very well-known streamer who, as of recently, has been banned, but formerly was basically like the face of Twitch. He was like one of the top dogs, one of the biggest stars, just hugely successful, making a lot of money. I think he might even have a net worth over $100 million. Like that's how successful he was, and that's how much he was able to like promote and endorsements and all that kind of stuff. Just a hugely successful guy, and he recently got banned, and Twitch, all they said was that he, all the official statement from Twitch said, and I'm paraphrasing, that he violated our community guidelines and blah blah blah, which was very vague. It left people with more questions than answers, and people have been theorizing and speculating as to what happened, and I don't know. I mean, #MeToo. I mean, what evidence is there that he's sexually assaulted anybody? I mean, the only thing that I've heard of that he's done that's sketchy was a completely consensual encounter with a woman at the conference at TwitchCon, and obviously it was infidelity, and I'm from a moral standpoint, I'm completely against that. So obviously shame on him for that, but he's apologized. There's a video where he's expressed a deep sadness and a deep regret, a deep sense of I screwed this up, and I'm just trying to rebuild the trust, and I'm going to take some time off and try to rebuild the relationship with the wife and this and that, focus on the family. So that, in my opinion, can't be the reason. But if you're gonna, and I'm not necessarily coming down on you, Kai, but in general, if someone's gonna throw out some #MeToo stuff, then they need to like have the evidence of it. Like that's like a really shitty accusation to throw at somebody before there's any evidence. I just don't like the guilty, or before innocent sort of mentality. because it, you know, lately it kind of doesn't matter. It's like all you have to do is, you know, Dr. Disrespect assaulted somebody, and you just put a question mark on it, and it's like, oh, I'm not saying anything false because I'm asking the question, but you know damn well that what you're doing is you're planting the idea into the brains of the readers. So I have a big problem with that. But I don't know. To me, like the most likely explanation that I've heard as to why Dr. Disrespect got banned is because the competitor to Twitch that was called Mixer. There were some big names streaming on Mixer, and Mixer recently got shut down for reasons I don't really know about, but Mixer is no more. And Mixer got shut down shortly after Twitch signed this contract with Dr. Disrespect to pay him a bunch of money. And the reason why, you know, just speculating here, but, you know, apparently the reason why Twitch gives so much money to Dr. Disrespect is to disincentivize him from moving over to Mixer. You know, they paid him all this money to keep him with Twitch. And now that Mixer is no more, now Twitch no longer has that incentive to pay him so much because they no longer have the competition that they no longer have this other competitor that they were once competing against. And so they just didn't want to pay all that money, and so they canned him. That seems like the most logical reason to me. I mean, why else would Twitch not elaborate on why they're banning him? I mean, you don't have something to cover up unless it doesn't make you look good. So that just seems what makes the most sense to me. If Twitch, you know, because if there was a hashtag Me Too thing, or a, you know, he sexually assaulted somebody, or, you know, any kind of racial whatever in the past, I mean, okay, well, if it was in the past, then why didn't it happen in the past? Why is it happening all of a sudden now? But if it was something like that, then I don't think Twitch would have any problem being more explicit on the reasons why they banned him. I think the reason why they're not being explicit and why they're being vague and they're not telling anybody is because the real reason doesn't make Twitch look good. Again, it's all speculation. I don't have any evidence, but it's just, you know, it's just what seems in my mind to make no sense. That's all. All right, I'm finally at my destination, so I can read some chats. Kai says, once you get hashtag Me Too'd, even though the allegations are false, it's hard to clear your name after that. Yes, I can imagine. I mean, I used to work as a high school teacher. You know, I was 23 and 24 years old, and I was teaching, like, you know, 17, 18-year-old girls. And, you know, it is very, like, you have to be very careful as a young man when you're teaching these, you know, 17, 18, 16, whatever year old, you know, even like 14. I taught 14-year-olds too. When you're teaching these young girls, you have to be extremely careful not to say anything that could be even remotely interpreted as any kind of, you know, proposition, or, you know, that kind of, or sexual advance or anything like that. You know, if anybody's in your room, like after class, you leave that door wide open. No one shows up in there alone. There's always somebody else in there. And even then, all it takes is, you know, you give a girl the wrong grade, you know, and she happens to be a fucking nut bar, and she just accuses you of some shit just because she doesn't like you because you gave her the grade that she didn't like. That's all it takes to, like, ruin your career as a teacher, as a man. You know, this is one of the reasons why there aren't a lot of male teachers out there. It's a freaking dangerous profession for men. And I understand that some of the men, you know, there are men who have, you know, fooled around with students and set a bad precedent. Of course, I get that. But for the men who really just want to, you know, teach children and do a good job at it, especially in an area like the area in which I taught. The area in which I taught had a lot of fatherlessness. There was a lot of father absence. And so for those kids to have a man that, you know, is an example of a man who actually is a positive role model and has his shit together, unlike a lot of their fathers, I think that's a very valuable relationship to have that male teacher who's in your corner, you know, and who's, you know, kind of being the mentor, or maybe even like almost sort of like a fatherly role is kind of how I approach it with my students. But yeah, I mean, you're right though. It's like once you get accused, it doesn't matter about the facts don't matter at that point. It's game over once you get accused. So that's why I highly dislike that kind of stuff. Because it could happen to anybody, and I don't want it to happen to anybody. I want it to happen just to the people who are actually guilty of it. My wife used to work as a crime scene investigator, and a large percentage of the sexual battery cases weren't actually even sexual battery. It was a prostitute who got stiffed. It was a prostitute who didn't get paid by the trick, and she had no legal recourse to get her money, so she just wanted to screw the guy over, and so she calls the police in and makes a sexual battery allegation. That happens a lot. There's a lot of false rape allegations. There's a lot of false sexual assault allegations, and I think that's despicable, because that takes time and resources and credibility away from prosecuting cases that actually involve real rape and real sexual assault. You're doing a big, if you accuse somebody falsely of any kind of sexual assault, I think you're doing a huge disservice to the actual victims of real sexual assault, and also to the criminal justice system, who and they have limited resources available. So good points. Kaylee says it's a double-edged sword. Once you have been sexually assaulted, it's difficult to prove that, depending on what happened. Yeah, I know it's dicey territory. It is difficult to prove, but it's necessary. I mean, you need evidence. You can't convict people without evidence. That's not how this country works. And it's also really dangerous. It's a really dangerous precedent to set. And also, this might get a little bit, I might turn up the heat in here a little bit. This might get a little uncomfortable. Okay. But let's say I'm a woman, or it doesn't even have to be a woman. It can be, because men get sexually assaulted too. In fact, men get raped more than women if you include the prison population. But let's just say that I'm a boy or something, and I've been sexually assaulted by somebody. Right? How is prosecuting that person going to help me? Like, in real life. I understand that, I might feel better that they're prosecuted. I understand that, perhaps that person will be less likely to inflict that kind of damage on others. I understand all of that. But, in my mind, if I've been violated, right, I have to, I have to focus on myself. I have to get myself into therapy. Maybe I have to take some medication. I have to, gather up my support system and have everybody who loves me around me. And that's what I need to do. I can't focus on this piece of shit who assaulted me. I have to focus on me. That's my time to be really, really selfish. Right? And I understand, you want to bring people to justice and all that stuff, but the truth is there's not much justice out there. There's not much justice out there. There's a lot of criminals who get off with a slap on the wrist because the district attorney they're like Floyd Mayweather. They just want to keep this winning record and improve their win-loss ratio and stuff like that. That's the thing. So justice is kind of like this pipe dream that doesn't really exist in our society as it currently exists. So those are just my thoughts on that whole thing. Again, not condoning sexual assault at all. I think it's evil. But given if something like that happens and it's like, okay, this is where I am now, it's like, how do I improve my life going forward? I focus on me. I focus on, what is in my control to try to overcome and get past this. So isn't that applicable to most crime? Why prosecute anyone? How is it different? Yes, that is applicable to most crime. That is applicable to most crime, right? If someone steals a package off of my porch, do you think the police are going to track that package down and give it back to me? No. No, it's not worth their time to do that. It's not worth their time to do that. So, why prosecute anyone? Well, I mean, I think that I think the biggest reason to prosecute people is to keep the rest of the population safe, But if you're going to put somebody in a cell You need a concrete reason to do it. You can't do it on conjecture. You can't do it on he said, she said. Okay, if you have a confessed murderer with video evidence, yeah, I have no problem prosecuting that person. I have no problem putting that person behind bars for life. Or better yet, banishing them to some island where you don't have to make the decision to kill them, because the death penalty is a little bit of a dicey territory from a moral point of view. But yeah, I mean, the reason why we prosecute people is to keep the rest of the population safe. But you can only do that if you're absolutely sure, beyond and to the exclusion of any reasonable doubt, that they've committed this heinous crime. If you're not, then you can't do that. Because what's to stop somebody from accusing you of something? And then, if someone accused you of something, Kaylee, think about this. If someone accused you of something, wouldn't you want there to be concrete evidence? Wouldn't you want the standard of proof to be really, really high in order to be able to put you away? Like, put yourself in the position of the accused. Let's say you're accused, but you're innocent. Wouldn't you want the burden of proof, the standard, to be really, really, really high to exonerate you? You have to have that high standard. And I know that means that some people are going to get off. I understand that. And I don't feel great about that. I think that sucks. But at the same time, that is better than putting away innocent people. I mean, it's the lesser of two evils. Letting a few people get away because there isn't 100% evidence is a lesser evil than imprisoning people who are innocent. Do you disagree? She says that's kind of a poor comparison, packages or objects. I'm not trying to compare the magnitude of theft versus assault. Okay? What I'm analogizing is that in our current society as it exists, the idea of somebody being brought to justice is a pipe dream. It doesn't really happen. There's violations of it all over the place. It's an ideal standard that doesn't exist anywhere in our society. I think that if you're a victim of something, the best way for you to have a better outcome is to work on yourself internally. And that doesn't mean that it's your fault. Of course not. But if you're a victim of something, the thing that has the best likelihood of improving your life now and forever is, you get the family together, you get your support system together, you go into therapy, maybe you'll need some medication. You work on yourself. You be selfish. This guy who did this thing, screw him. It's time to focus on me. It's time to make sure that my future is as good as it can be. Definitely not defending criminals here. Please don't interpret it that way, because that's not happening. Good discussion. I like it. All right, so I'm a little over an hour in, so I think I'll end the stream. I'm still here. I'm always talking to my husband at the same time. Laughing smiley face. Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I'm going to get going. I'm at my house. I think I might have seen my wife looking at me through the blinds like, hey, why the hell aren't you in here yet? So I think I'm going to get going. And yeah, I actually like, these conversations can get a little bit uncomfortable at times, but I like talking about important stuff with people, even if it's like a disagreement. And I think, obviously we all agree on more than we disagree on. We all agree that, violating another individual, any kind of forced, behavior, any kind of non-consensual transaction is abominable, inexcusable behavior. And so I certainly agree with that. I think, we were just on different wavelengths. I think I was sort of arguing from a more practical point about what's actually likely to, improve things. And again, practical has nothing to do with ethics. I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that it's right that, people get off or anything, or, without, or a slap on the wrist, or they don't go to jail when they ought to, and things like that. There's nothing right about that. But I do believe, though, that if if you're going to lock somebody in the cage, like, you need definitive, unequivocal proof, because the alternative is locking up people who are innocent, and that is terrifying. I would never want to be locked up for a crime that I didn't commit because there wasn't a high standard of evidence. Kai says, have you ever thought about starting a podcast? This could be a great conversation for an episode. No, I've never thought about starting a podcast. I don't know, maybe if I was bigger and had, because what's going to happen is, okay, I start a podcast and then like 1 or 2 people listen to it, and if I was going to start a podcast, I'd probably do it like if I had like a much bigger like base of people watching me, and then it would be able to sort of pick up some traction right away. Kai says it's difficult to give a straightforward answer in a span of 3 minutes. Yeah, this would be a good podcast topic. But also, me saying, my thoughts on this is not a hugely popular position to take, and it's likely to be censored. Even if it is like if it does pick up traction and gain steam and gain popularity, there's a lot of people with unpopular opinions, especially on YouTube, that are dropping like flies. They're just getting permabanned, and without any warning, without any 3 strikes, without anything. They just they try to log into their account and it's not there. It's wiped from the entire website. You could have guests on that have different viewpoints. Yeah, that sounds. Yeah, I'm always down to debate for sure. Like, I would love. No one's ever invited me for a debate. No one's ever reached out to me and said, "Hey, you want to debate this guy or whatever?" That has never happened. But if it did happen, and if it was like, unless it was a topic that I literally knew nothing about and just didn't have the time to research, then I probably would decline the invitation. But if it's something that maybe I could hold my own on the debate stage, yeah, I would absolutely accept that proposition. It's never happened. It's never happened. And I also don't want to challenge anybody either, because I don't know. That would take away from doing what I really want to do, which is to make educational videos and stuff like that. So, but if I was invited, yeah, I would accept the invite. But yeah, podcasts, I don't see that being very successful at this point. And Kai says, we actually do need unpopular opinions, because one way to remain brain dead is to collectively have the same opinions. Yeah, that's how the Soviet Union ended up where it was. That's how China ended up where it was. That's how Venezuela ended up where it was. That's how Cuba ended up where it was. Yeah, not enough, and also because they, it's like Castro, for instance, in addition to like Stalin and Mao, they murdered people who had unpopular opinions. They had a cult of personality type of dictatorship. They would literally murder people who went against the grain of what the government was doing. So yeah, I agree. I think it's really important to have things like that out there. Because it's, if you cancel people, and this is the last thing I'm going to say because I have to get going because my wife just texted me. All right, Kaylee, take it easy. Kaylee says she's got to go. Take it easy. This is the last thing I'm going to say before I end the stream, is that when you cancel people, that is a confession. It's a confession that you are not secure and confident in your ideas, to the point where, because if you're super confident and you're super secure in your ideas, then you have no problem with other people expressing opposing ideas, because your ideas have more reason, they have more evidence, and they will win on a public stage. So by this cancel culture shit, all it is to me, it's just a confession of weakness. It's a confession that, oh, I lost the battle of ideas, and so now the only way I can try to win it is by silencing people. And that's very weak, very insecure behavior in my mind. Just my opinion. All right, I'm gonna get going. Nice talking to you guys. I haven't even started the next educational video or I haven't even started the next educational video yet, so it might be a little while before it drops, but thank you so much for your time joining me today. I really, really appreciate it. If you haven't already, I do have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. You can find links to it on the top of my channel page, the channel banner, the bottom right-hand corner of that image. There are links to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and my Discord. Discord is actually slowly picking up and becoming more active. People talking on there about, sometimes random things, but it's sort of picking up. So if you want to join that, you're more than welcome to. I would love it. Yeah, if any help that you guys could send my way, I would really appreciate, spreading the word. If you know anybody who, studying chemistry or anything like that, they need some help, please send them my way. I would wholeheartedly appreciate it. All right.